And gown, right?
Welcome to the Tuesday, October 17th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting. It is 5:32 p.m. I'll call us to order. We will begin with introductions beginning to my left.
School board?
Colin McGuff.
Becky Fless.
Chris McGuall.
Molly Rogers.
Administrative staff.
Pat Hopkins, superintendent.
Andrea Dish, business manager.
Carrie McGuire, Director of Technology.
Perfect. Thank you. So we're going to adjust the
Yeah, we're going to adjust the agenda. Nate Stibbert is going to be here, but he needed to kick off soccer. It's senior night for varsity soccer. So he'll be here around 6:15. So why don't we talk about all of the other things first? And then if we're ready to start before he arrives, we will, but. Okay.
All right. So we'll go to B, the Schiavi lease.
So as a reminder, we have two modular classrooms at the Pittston Randolph Consolidated School. One of the modulars we purchased with Easter funds. The other modular is the one that we leased when we first closed the T.C. Hamlin School. We received an email at the end of September from the branch manager of Schiavi or Box, inquiring what our plans were. Basically, if we agreed to renew the lease agreement for 36 months or longer, she can keep the rate the same. The current rate is $5,075 a month or $60,900 a year. $5,075 a month.
Andrea, currently the district receives reimbursement from the Department of Education for that expense.
That will soon be coming to an end. The Department of Education only allows for the reimbursement of leased expenses for so many years, for I believe it's 5. So we are approaching that. This may be our last year. I know that this year, I think this might be our last year. So that comes back to us through the ED 279.
Is there a lease purchase option?
I did not inquire, only because we had such a hard time getting rid of the modular classrooms at the high school. We're not sure that if we are going to consolidate, that we want one more modular building to have to get rid of.
Are they both full?
Yes.
Yes.
How long was the first lease? It was open-ended, and now they're asking us if we want to extend. There was no end date, but now they want to know what our plans are.
And will you remind me, when did we close Hamlin? 2000?
Oh,
I want to say 17,
17?
but don't quote me,
it
please.
has to be because that's when Alyssa first came on the board.
17.
Mhm.
I don't know how I feel about the 3-year sign on.
If we're going to consolidate, I think we would need it for at least that long.
We would.
Yeah, the projects aren't going to open until next year.
No, I know we would. 3 years is not long. It's not long. And
It
how-
would be my recommendation to renew.
Okay.
We had a hard time getting, modulars were hard to come by during COVID. They were hard
True.
to come down by before COVID. So, I mean,
Well, we need it. I mean, we can't get rid of it, so
I
it's just a
don't-
matter of how we want to pay for it.
it's already in our budget. I mean,
So Maybe because they're hard to come by, they're probably gonna remain hard to come by because we had to wait even before.
I think everything has
Um,
become hard to come by.
Right, and
It's a new
one
world.
thing we are guilty of is taking really good care of our things.
Mhm.
So when it comes time, we can probably sell it.
I can inquire about the purchase price of it. We can table it.
Are things really still that hard to come by though? Because the reason they were hard to come by then was because literally everyone was trying to gain space and spread kids out and.
Well, when we got this
So-
first one over at Pittston, we had to wait. It was not, I mean,
It wasn't even COVID.
no, it was not COVID.
Right, but was that kind of before the trend as well? I know, I mean, there's a trend.
It
of-
was before the trend, so
I don't mean the COVID trend. I mean, were a lot of schools in demand for modulars at that time? Was that a new?
It was, there aren't a lot of companies that are leasing them.
Okay.
I mean, you have to put an order in, you have to wait. I mean, it was a process.
these came up from Georgia, right?
From Georgia.
And it kept getting pushed back and pushed back and
We were kind of built to order, sort of,
kind of.
kind of.
And the spaces are great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're really nicer than the classroom space. Definitely want to keep it. We need to keep it. We just
We need to
have
keep
no
it.
other
We have no-
alternative
So
right
it's
now.
been open-ended, but now they require 3 years?
They want to, they say if we promise to lease for another 3 years, they will keep our rate. They're looking at increasing our rate.
And they'll lock in the rate for the full 3 years.
Mhm.
36 months or longer.
The good thing on our end, I guess, now that I think about it, is if you get it for 3 years, they're not gonna come back next year and ask for 15 grand more.
They haven't asked and
Which,
it's been what,
At that
6
point,
years?
then what do you do? Like, you kind of almost have to pay it.
Right.
So I think we're probably better off to lock in a rate for 3 years that we know in budget.
Right.
Yeah. That unless you're expecting enough of a decline in
Yeah.
enrollment over that period that we just don't need that classroom.
No, I mean, we are anticipating, we expect that
Mhm.
decline will continue. However, the needs of the students are increasing, right? So we have more specialized programs. And so I don't see the need for less space in the immediate
Right.
future.
I would recommend that we only agree to renew for 36 months and then we'll approach it again at that time.
And see
Mhm.
where we are, see whether my projection is correct or not.
You said it's already in the budget, but at this time, we receive reimbursement for it.
So the reimbursement that we receive comes through our ED 279. So it's, if you look at, I want to say page 5 or 6, you'll see that they give us money towards it. They don't cover the full cost, but
And
Okay,
ED
good.
279 is our state subsidy form.
it is our, yes, it's the form that everyone receives for subsidy.
But that is ending.
So it'll be an added $60,900 to the budget.
No, it's in there. It's been in there every year. So we have to budget it. So there won't be adding to the budget. There'll just be less revenue coming in
Gotcha,
with our
gotcha.
subsidy.
Okay. All right. So do we want to vote to
Up to you.
take this to the full board for confirmation? So I would love a motion
Make
to,
a motion, we sign on to the 36-month lease with, however you say that.
Skiavi?
Schiavi,
For the modular Piston Consolidated.
Second?
second by Colin. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Motion carries, thank you. Food service equipment.
So, yep.
I remember this.
Becky and I had a call either last week or the week before. One of our steamers the steamer at the high school just died. And they can't operate without it. So the cost of a new steamer is $24,000. Linda and I had conversations. The steamer that we have is probably less than 5 years old. So you can imagine my happiness with having a steamer that the cost of replacing it, the cost of fixing it does not warrant fixing. It was expensive. Whatever part gave is just expensive. So we considered that, and after conversation with Becky, they need to have it. There's carryover in the lunch budget from last year, so it wouldn't cost us any money. Unfortunately, however, the warranty on these are only for, it's not to exceed 24 months. And the extended warranty is year by year, and the cost doesn't warrant picking up the extended warranty.
What does that mean? How much is the cost?
It's like $7,000 for another 1 year. So there's no such thing as a 20-year warranty or 10-year warranty.
We expect it to crack.
So, and if you do the extended warranty, they expect you to follow their maintenance protocols. They need to come in, they need to replace it with such and such. What I will say is that the last steamer we purchased was of a different brand. This one, we're going back to Cleveland. Somebody had recommended a different brand. So we're going back to Cleveland, which is what the people we spoke to recommended. I'm not quite sure why we switched it out. We were having problems with the other steamer before that, so it was just. So we have purchased a steamer, and I am letting you know that the funds will be covered from the carryover in the lunch budget.
Gotcha.
And just for clarity, because it's under a $25 threshold, we're able to make that purchase without approval from the board per policy.
It's $25,000 that Becky and I reached out. Linda needed it to operate her line at the high school. And just so that everyone knows, we secured 3 bids. I looked at the 3 quotes rather. I looked at the quotes. This is the lowest of the 3. While we are on the subject of lunch equipment, for those of you might remember, Pat and I have talked about the asbestos abatement project that we had at the high school and the replacement of tile in the cafeteria. That project just finished before school started. The freezers were off during the summer. They move all the product to one freezer in one location, and they keep all the product there. And then when everybody returns to school, product gets moved around. So this month or in September, they noticed the moving of the tiles, the new tiles in the cafeteria from moisture.
In one location.
The location is in the cafeteria, next to the wall, the kitchen wall. So at first, Gabe thought that there was a leak in the wall. We had a water leak. So upon investigation, there is no water leak. The only thing that he can surmise is that the walk-in freezer on the back end is either leaking or condensation from it is causing enough moisture for the new tiles to move back and forth. So 1, it's a hazard, and 2, we've got an issue with a walk-in freezer. So Gabe is calling somebody in to look at the walk-in freezer. Upon inspection, there there didn't appear to be a leak. We had a conversation about maybe the insulation not being sufficient, but it's against a concrete wall. So when Gabe left my office, or right before he left my office, he was talking about replacement of the walk-in freezer at the high school. And just to prepare you, the last time we replaced a walk-in freezer was at Pittston during the renovation project that we did with Siemens. And that entire kitchen project was $250,000. So I'm not sure where this conversation will lead, but since I've had the conversation with Gabe, I wanted you to be aware of what is going on.
And the renovation at the Pittston Randolph School was more than just a walk-in freezer. It was a lot bigger than that. But the walk-in freezer alone is roughly $100,000.
More like 150,000.
Okay.
Is there, I'm by no means a mechanic or a maintenance person. However, all the water that came through the high school from the blocked pipe, is it that when the floor was so wet, it can't be related to that? And my second question, it's concrete underneath the floor, the tiles, is it concrete?
That I don't know. That I do not know what is underneath the high school cafeteria
Assume, but
floor.
I don't know for certain.
Because not that my life matters in any way, shape, or form, but my house happens to be in the lowest spot in town, and water actually moisture comes up through the ground when it's wet and makes the concrete underneath wet.
We have that issue in other areas of the school. It typically goes away once fall passes. It's the heating and the cooling. So maybe it will go away. Gabe's thought was that the old asbestos tiles somehow contained whatever moisture was. And with the new tiles, apparently it's not containing the moisture as well. So that is why we're now noticing the problem, but the new tiles are shifting.
So is there a warranty with those tiles since they're brand new?
We didn't really talk about the tiles. I would assume there would be, since they were just laid down, but the issue that is really as a result of another issue. So it's not a labor issue or an installation issue.
Right.
So I'm sure Gabe would reach out to the manufacturer or the installer to see. And maybe once the condensation goes away, they'll stop shifting. I don't know what the give is. We didn't discuss it, but it's enough to make it a hazard. It's where kids go and dump off their trays. So there's definitely traffic there. So he's looking at it, but I just wanted you to be aware of the conversation because mainly the large price tag.
How big an area are we talking about? Couple square feet, dozen square feet?
Well, the walk-in is probably, I would say 4 to 6. And maybe it will resolve itself. We've had do you remember in the main office where there were issues with condensation with the heating and cooling?
That problem has not resolved
No,
itself.
we thought it had with Siemens.
It's
but-
still a problem.
Yeah.
I was
So-
wondering, did it coincide with the extreme heat that we had? Like,
I don't know. I just became aware of this issue today, and I haven't had a chance to speak with Gabe about it
sometimes
yet.
the condensation, obviously, equipment is working overtime,
Correct.
so.
But, maybe we will have a few months where the problem disappears, but it's going to come back if we
Right.
don't address it.
How old is the walk-in?
It was when the school was built, and the school was built in 1950, no, 62. 63, 62? It's original to the school.
That's impressive, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is impressive.
And you know what? We'll replace it and the next one won't last that long.
Correct.
Mhm.
Jeff had a
That
question.
was
Oh,
my question.
yes.
I wonder how old it
Yeah.
was. Usually when you have an issue with water around walk-ins like this, gasketing, you know, it isn't sealed properly, so it condenses, you know, you get condensation and leakage. You get frost forming along the edge of the door that melts from the outside temperature, and then it's a never-ending cycle.
He did notice frost it's in the back of the walk-in freezer because it abuts that wall. And there was frost forming, so he hasn't brought anyone in to look at it, but he just put it on my radar. He likes to sometimes just pop in and make my day like that.
Happy Tuesday.
Yes,
Has anyone
happy
said
Tuesday.
If the equipment has been acting like this, but it's just the tiles that are bringing it to our attention, or like, has anyone noticed the frost on the inside, last year and?
This is the
Yeah.
first we've been made aware, so we
Yeah.
just can't answer any questions yet.
You're not
Yeah,
even
but
sure that
maybe
the tiles
ask
are
those
related to the walk-in
Right.
at all.
It's
No,
moisture.
except there's moisture on the tiles, and whatever moisture, like Gabe opened the wall up and it clearly is not a leak in the pipes. That's what they were expecting to find. And they couldn't figure out where the water was coming from. And there's enough water to cause those tiles to be able to shift back and forth. So there's enough water to create an issue.
You can tell me to be quiet at any time. However, I have learned that freezers get icy and they have a drain in the back that gets plugged with crumbs and things that you wouldn't even expect. And it's apparently a regular feature of maintenance to clear that drain, or it will make water.
So that freezer had been off all summer. He is calling somebody in to look at the freezer. So the freezer defrosted over June, July, and August. So I don't know whether the drain issue and being defrosted, he's
We're all
calling-
just hoping not to have to buy a new freezer.
Exactly. He's calling someone in
Yeah.
and I will keep you posted, or
Yeah.
we will keep you posted on the conversation.
We just want it to be little.
I want it to be little too.
So, okay, we will accept whatever is true.
And
Yeah.
insurance, would insurance cover something like that, do you think? Due to the damage?
I don't know that there was damage to the floor or damage to the walk-in.
I'm thinking to the floor.
Perhaps it would cover damage to the floor, but we have $5,000 deductible. So if it's under 5,000, I am not going to claim it because of the 24 or 25% increase to our insurance.
Seems reasonable.
That reminds me, we were gonna have a conversation with finance about insurance.
This is finance.
I know this is finance, but
Is it insurance time yet?
Cullen brought it up on Thursday night where he had a question about, when I did my board report, he had a question about our property and liability insurance.
so we'll do that in November, the November meeting.
Well, then Cullen
If
won't
he
be
has
here.
questions, I may be able to answer them. If he has specific, depends upon what the questions are, I may be able to answer them if the finance committee wants to. Otherwise, we can put it on the November. It's up to you.
I would love to try and answer Colin's questions.
Sure.
Do we wanna do that after we continue through the agenda?
Sure. Any other equipment failures? Before we move on,
Not today,
is there any wood here?
not today.
All righty, update on the Consolidated Elementary School.
I don't have a lot for the next two to update you on. Following our last meeting, I reached out to the Department of Education and asked for them to provide with us some information on requests for qualifications. So they sent me the notices regarding what we need to post in the paper. And that came in about a week or so ago, so I just haven't had a chance to finish them, and I need to spend some time with both Andrea and Gabe to take a look at the time frame and the anticipated schedule of what's realistic. They provided a sample and it's very, very lengthy in terms of interviews, bids received, construction completed, which all we're really looking for, of course, is just an assessment of the building. So I have a little more work that I need to do on this, but I'd like to get it out within the next week, so that we're not sitting on it for too long. So the other thing that I learned when I had that conversation, I've already spoken to you about the fact that the Department of Education is going to be doing an inventory of all the schools throughout the state. So they've now provided us with the document that they're going to use. They have about 100 questions. And we should expect to see someone from the Department of Education here probably the next month or so. And they will look at all of the schools and answer those questions. The person who will be doing the inventory will be Ed Ants.
Oh,
Yeah, so Ed Ants
nice.
was the workers' comp person for Maine School Management for years, and he recently retired. So he has been through all of our buildings multiple times, which is great. So he's already familiar with the buildings. So hopefully that process will go smoothly. I've already given information to Gabe so that we can prepare in advance for the visit. So that's moving forward. So that's really all.
He'll be
that I
great.
have.
That's good.
Yeah, I
Nice.
think he'll be good.
Excellent. Anybody have any questions before we move on? Okay, community project funding.
I reached out to Representative Golden's office, and they have a new person that I needed to speak with. And I've scheduled a meeting with him. He will be here on November 7th to meet with Gabe and myself to talk about potential funding and what they would need for us to be able to go through the process and be ready to submit a proposal in the spring. So that is moving forward. So that's the week before your next finance meeting, right? The 7th, yeah. So I'll be able to update you with the next finance.
And the next board meeting really is on the 7th, not the 15th or 14th.
The next board meeting is on the 3rd.
I'm playing with you, so the finance committee meeting won't be all
Gotcha.
garbled up.
The 2nd, is it the 2nd? Thank you.
Perfect.
Although it's at 5:00.
That's okay. Because we're going to the play.
You're right, we're going to the play.
So excited.
So that's all that I have there. So we are waiting for Nate. So I would move on to the insurance
Sure.
question before we go back to the hourly rate for athletic workers.
Okay.
So I don't have the specifics in front of me. I think I reported in the board minutes or in the administrative's report that the insurance increased approximately 24% or $25,000, which was more than we anticipated. Typically, I budget a 10% increase, and I've never seen it come in. Excuse me, I have never seen it come in a full 10% increase, but apparently across schools, everyone is getting hit with large insurance increases. So I reached out to our current broker and had a conversation with him. And then I reached out to our previous broker who I had a very long relationship with and had a conversation, just a follow-up conversation. And he did confirm that Liberty Mutual, who our policy is written through, that basically nationwide, there is an increase in insurance costs because of all of the things that are happening across the country, in Hawaii, in California, in Florida. And I know that I received my insurance renewal just this week. And I received about a $1,200 increase for both home and auto, and I don't have any comments. So,
Well, I will take it from there and fill in what you're not saying. The frustrating part with our insurance carrier or with our broker is that the projected increase was known by brokers during our budget season, yet we weren't told until July. And
when we got our bill.
so we were never notified. So we're frustrated that this information had been made available and yet the broker failed to communicate with us and I assume other school districts. Insurance, there are two things by law that school districts must bid. One is insurance and the other is transportation, right? To buy your buses, you have to bid. And you have to bid by law every 5 years. So we have not necessarily been, the customer service with our current broker has not been to the same satisfaction as our previous broker. So can you tell me how many years we're into our?
We can actually go out to bid at any time.
Just how many years are we
I
in?
think we are, I want to say this is probably our 4th year in.
it's 4.
So we may talk internally about going out to bid and seeing what happens. We went with this particular broker because it was about $25,000 less than the other bid, and the other bid came in the winter following the loss of the high school gym roof, right? So because of such a large claim, our rates went up.
So the process to do property and casualty and property and liability insurance is huge. Basically, there's a request for qualifications and you ask, there's only so many businesses or so many insurance companies that write school insurance. So basically you send bids out to insurance companies. They send back a request for qualification, they answer, and then you decide who you want to accept bids from. At that point, you ask them to list the insurance companies that they are going to go out to bid with, because you can't have two brokers using the same bid. So they each get first, second, and third choice, okay? So our previous broker chose one insurance company, and obviously the other brokers chose other insurance companies. The bid that we went with, so when you go out to bid, there's probably a 25-page document bid. There's a bid form that's 25 pages. It's very in-depth. And one of the things that they look at is your 5-year loss history. So our current insurance, at that time, we had just had a huge project. For those of you who weren't here, the gym wall at the high school actually shifted, and it was very costly to repair. We believe it was from wind damage. So our existing insurance company had that loss on their loss run report. Our current, the one that we have now, did not include that loss on their loss run and significantly undercut the bid of our previous broker. Is everyone following me? I know this is very complicated. There was no way that we could substantiate such a difference in price. I guess that's, so obviously the board accepted the low bid. It has been an interesting relationship. And Pat is right, the customer service level is not to the degree that I have been accustomed to with our previous broker. In addition, over the years, what has happened is our rates have increased, okay? When I called our previous insurance broker, because he writes for both, I wanted to know what others were seeing. And that is when I was informed that those who wrote Business for Liberty were informed in February about a huge increase. He met with all of his clients to let them know. I found out about it when the bill arrived, and it arrived. So the renewal is July 1st. The renewal bill arrived in the middle of July.
Current broker didn't extend the same courtesy.
I assume that if my previous broker said that Liberty Mutual told everyone about it to expect it in February, and he sat down and met with his clients, that they notified all brokers, not just my previous broker. So he was surprised that it was the first that I had heard. And when I questioned it, the response that I got was, I'm expecting a baby and things have been hectic.
So our response the other day was, it's been interesting.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of backstory, so.
Andrew, just ballpark, what's the total cost we absorb annually in paying the insurance?
It's about 125,000.
Okay. I've heard from a lot of other colleagues at other organizations, everybody's seeing a 25 to 30% jump up this year.
We are.
And I personally am not convinced it's like gonna go back to 5% the year after that. So I'm just thinking.
When is the premium due?
The premium is due July 1st. The policy runs July 1st to June 30th. And previously, with our previous broker, I always had everything before the renewal date.
So we've already.
I am not trying to, I don't know what the word is. I am not trying to
Disparage the broker?
There you go. Thank you. It's just, it's not the customer service that I had been accustomed to in my previous.
He needs to be
10 or
careful. We
15
work
years.
with taxpayer money, so we can't just, maybe or not.
You said that when we switched, it was because they had about a 25% less.
Nobody could have touched
So-
that bid.
So have we been paying 25% less, and does this 25% bring us
No,
in?
I don't know what our policy would be, our policy with our previous broker would be now. I have no way of knowing that.
I'm just saying that you mentioned it was 25 less before and now it's 25
But
more,
that-
so does that bring us?
That loss had to hop onto that. So losses,
Okay.
your loss run is obviously part of your renewals. That wall had to jump onto that loss run for the next year, because even now I'm requesting loss run reports because it's a 5-year from our previous broker for him to run loss run reports.
Okay, so just a little bit of information.
You're gonna, obviously, this is gonna go out to a bidding process, right? I mean,
The law requires 2 areas, insurance and buses.
within a 5-year span. Right?
Every 5 years, yep, you have to.
You can do it earlier, though.
You can,
Okay.
absolutely.
We are going to do that.
We haven't decided if we're going to do it this year. It's a lot of work.
It's probably a 4-month process. It's huge. But it
But we
would,
may.
after discussion.
Well, I wouldn't reward this broker with a commission again after you've been treated this way. Baby and no baby.
It's something to be said about good customer service.
Yep, there's a lot to be
Well, in
said.
time with this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather pay a few thousand more now and have a year to deal with the budget consequence.
Nobody will argue that it's been a bad several years with
It's-
fires and
It's not about the increase. It's about.
It's about the notification.
It's about the notification
Correct,
and
the
our ability
communication.
to.
Yeah.
to plan for.
Yep.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to the District Finance Committee.
Bug.
What is with the fruit flies?
It's
Are they
just
fruit
one.
flies?
I don't know what it is, but I'm
Do you have
sorry.
them? I have them in my house. Ugh, It makes me
I have
not want to
them in
eat
my
fruit
car.
anymore. You have them in your car?
I went to an apple cider place on Sunday and mistakes were made with a gallon of apple cider.
Oh, no.
An extensive fruit fly collection in my car.
Jeez. I find they come with bananas
Did you
and
get
I
her
like
Frickers?
bananas, but
No, that's something you needed.
fruit flies.
All right. Are we set to go back up to the hourly rate athletic workers?
We have a special guest, so
We
absolutely.
do. Would you like to?
You want to sit at the table with us?
Fine.
All right. You don't have to stand at the podium.
Sorry. I can go there. Know if she had shared.
Thank you, Nate. How's the soccer game?
Just started.
Well attended? Excellent.
All right, so as a reminder, at the last finance meeting, we had a request for finance committee to take a look at the amount of money being paid to game workers. And the request was to increase the amount per game by $10. The finance committee asked for additional information, and that's what you see in front of you. So the payroll department and Andrea spent a lot of time going through all of this. So what you have in front of you is the exact amount paid to individuals for each position that we hire for our athletic events. So you have like a ticket booth taker or a scorer. There are times where Nate maybe can't be available. There are multiple games and he can't be in 3 places at once, so we have someone hired. So you might see administrative coverage. You might see a flagger in volleyball. And you will see it goes through each season. We've tried to list how much the person was paid, how many games that equates to, whether it was a varsity game, a JV, freshman, and then based on information that Nate provided, I added in how many hours that works out to be, that they state that they are working. So that is all on one sheet, and you will see that last year we paid total for these workers, $10,567.50. That's at the bottom of that page. On the next document, we put together what would the projected increase be for the event. So you will see once again, we've listed the current rate, the number of games. If you add $10, what the projected increase would be, and then the total cost to the district. So the total cost based on this would be $3,240. However, yeah,
I don't want to sound unappreciative. These are very small dollars. Doesn't this fall within your managerial remit to just do this, or does this kind of pay increase have to go through a board motion?
if a board is going to do its increase, then it has to go through a board motion. I don't have the authority to just decide that we're going to pay people more.
Okay.
Yeah, that does require a board. But as we went through this and started to do our analysis, there just appeared to be lots of layers here where there were some positions that were maybe paid $40, others that were paid $45. And I don't necessarily understand the reasons for the differences. So when you start calculating the hourly rate, we have some who might be making $15 an hour. We have others maybe making $22 an hour. We have some employees that are not making $22 an hour. We know that there's already a coaching stipend issue that negotiations is going to take a look at. We've also begun to discuss and have conversations about the fact that we have some staff members who are under contract, who may have to leave work a little early to be able to go to a game. What does that look like? So the more that we dig into this, and while it may seem like a small amount, the more we dig into this, the more I'm finding lots of inconsistencies. So I'm happy to answer questions, but my recommendation would be after looking at this. And remember, I shared with you last month some of the other area school districts, what they're paying. Some of them are comparable to what we're paying, and in fact, it's a little bit less. My proposal is to just stick with the rates that we're paying for now. Don't increase them this year. And I want to pull together a small group that would involve Andrea, that would involve the Teachers Association, because this does impact the Teachers Association, Nate, and to try to dig a little bit deeper into what those inconsistencies are, do more of a comprehensive analysis. What I don't want to do is say, it's only $3,200, let's do it, only to find out we have a bigger problem, that ultimately is going to cost us a lot more. One of the challenges that we haven't fleshed out here is some of these folks are our employees. How many hours are they working during the day? How many hours are they working at night for the games? Are they working more than 40 hours? Is this time and a half? I don't know. Those are the types of questions that, since this has been brought to our attention, we now need to pause and dig into a little bit deeper.
We have one person to thank for it, and I hope she's grateful for this deep dive.
So that would be my recommendation. I'm just not ready to make a recommendation to make the change, even though it does appear on the surface to be a relatively small amount. Nate, I don't know, what can you add to this conversation?
I guess the only thing I can add is this fee structure that we have that's currently in place for our game workers. I think it's changed in quite some time. It certainly hasn't changed since I've been here, and this is my 6th year. So looking at these just on the surface, there are some things that I see could be adjusted, changed, possibly deleted, some things added. So I think Pat's recommendation is a good one, that we dig deeper into this and maybe revamp this whole thing and see what the impact is on other areas as well.
Yeah, and I want us to be fair. And I know we've talked about this here. I know you want to be good employers, right? And you want to be fair employers. And I just want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're applying it consistently across the board and taking into account those little nuances that we are beginning to find.
And it started at our last finance meeting with, are we paying them minimum wage? But then when you go and you just look at just the amounts that are stuck on certain jobs, it just, we need to unravel it because it might not be, we might not be paying minimum wage, and then we will be in trouble.
Well, we are paying minimum. I don't want anyone to think that we're not paying minimum wage. I just want us to be mindful before we end up paying our athletic workers more per hour than we pay some of our instructional
Correct, our
employees,
instructional employees, absolutely.
i.e. ed techs.
Yep.
So this just needs to be done, like Pat said, thoughtfully. It's like pulling a thread on a sweater. It just, the more we started pulling, things started to unravel.
Becomes a pile of yarn.
Questions?
How are these filled?
How
How are they filled? Like how do you decide who gets it, who doesn't?
So
Process.
there's no application process. It's primarily, staff members, mostly staff members who've done it in the past and ones that I can trust. As I was explaining to Pat on the phone earlier, it's, there are certain positions that require a bit of knowledge and expertise, like running a clock for a basketball game. They need to know when to stop the clock, when to start the clock. how many points are scored on a field goal versus a three-pointer, basic knowledge of the game. And then it just becomes people that are willing to do it. Last year I had a little bit of a struggle finding people. Sometimes I put emails out to the entire staff asking if anybody's interested in doing it. And so I get some people, and that's
So essentially it's your responsibility to find these people.
100% my responsibility, yeah.
Okay.
And what we've talked about as well, Nate, that while historically you've put it out to staff, and when you say staff, I don't know if you mean district or high school. But there is nothing that prevents us to put it out to the broader community.
No.
Parents.
As a way to include the
Yeah, and I
community, we
certainly
want
had
people
some
in our
parents
schools.
do it as well.
If they're gonna be there, they could learn how to run a clock and be compensated.
That isn't the process now? It isn't open to the whole community, this type of work?
No, we don't advertise it essentially as a,
But could someone come in and volunteer and say, I'd like to be part of it?
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I say that, I don't know if there's any thing that says I can't volunteer.
Well, and you do have volunteers for
Yeah, there's-
football.
I have volunteers for a lot of positions. Yeah, there are a lot of positions. We have for instance, our chain gang, at football games, they're all volunteer.
Are they unpaid?
They're unpaid. Yeah, they've been volunteering for as long as I've been here. And so there are some people who volunteer and we don't pay them.
Are all these people that do these, are they considered employees, even if they're,
Yes,
They have to
whether
be.
they work for us or not during the day.
so you're withholding and taxes and?
Absolutely.
Is there?
The only ones who aren't considered employees and they are not on this sheet are officials who aren't otherwise paid by the district. Those individuals get, because they do it at districts throughout their 1099 employees. And somebody spends a lot of time to make sure that none of them work more than $600 at any one school district. And $600, you may ask, is the threshold at which the wages become reportable.
Right.
So,
And we have talked about, Pat and I talked about relying 100% on volunteers, but we can't do that because games have to go on. So if you have someone say they'll show up and then they don't, and we don't have someone reliable, knowledgeable, the MPA would have a field day with us. So we do have to, there's certain things that people can volunteer for, other things that that we need to know that someone's gonna be there and take care of it.
I notice they're all getting paid more than we are.
Well, when we signed up, we said it was a volunteer job.
That is
so
true.
It is
there
true.
any hiring restrictions or review of volunteers, employees? I mean, what is the process? I know to be a substitute, you have to do a number of things.
No, there's no sort of evaluation process. I like to use employees that we have. It just makes the process a lot easier and more streamlined, especially when they're in school. They've already been, background checked by the district and
Right.
all that, so it just makes it easier.
I was gonna say, if we were to open that up in theory to community members, they probably would ought to have the same sort of screening that district employees have, right?
I don't know that we would need to do it for those types of positions because the screening that we do at our office is because those folks are going to be with students on potentially a one-to-one basis. They're going to be in classrooms. They have a different responsibility than sitting at a table and running a clock. That is just not the same as an employee who's going to be working with students. So I don't know. I would have to give that some thought, but
Just anecdotally, I know that there was a longtime history teacher at a high school that I might have gone to who needed to leave because of conduct unbecoming of a teacher, who was then able to work as a referee for girls' high school basketball. So like sometimes it might be a good idea to think in a way of like at least having like a baseline of a check before people who are outside our school district are in those positions, I guess, if you feel me.
I hear you. And ideally, of course, I think first choice is always to have staff, you know, and gives them an opportunity to put a little extra money in their pocket.
Unless we have to pay them,
They are a known entity.
unless we have to pay them overtime, at which point it becomes
Yeah.
an issue. Sorry.
But we also like hiring employees for these roles because we like to view it as an extension of the classroom.
Mhm.
So they already know what the expectation is around kids.
And a lot of our ed techs are only 30 hours a week, so they have capacity before they hit that overtime threshold.
Are you looking for a motion?
No, I don't think we need a motion for this. I think just taking no action is fine. You're not really increasing, you're not decreasing, you're just letting us kind of form a committee and pausing.
Do an
We'll
ad
have
hoc.
to bring this back to you once we meet, and of course, we'll need to bring that back to you prior to the end of the budget season, should there be any recommended changes.
And obviously we'll respond to the question that came in initiating our research.
That will have to be a part of this.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, but for the meantime, I'd say we just stay status quo for the rest of the year and then decide later on.
Pat, I hope I didn't offend you at the beginning. I think increasing transparency and fairness in employment is totally worthwhile. I hate the idea of you and your team being handcuffed by $3,000. Like,
No, I wasn't offended at all. It just, I just don't have that kind of authority,
Okay.
which is good. I shouldn't have that much control or ability to make those types of changes. You're responsible for setting the budget and therefore you're responsible for setting the hourly rates as well that go along with it, as it should be.
And this particular thing has been sort of an aha moment for us. And so sort of like we did when we did the athletics, how many clubs do we have? And do we have enough students and athletes playing on those teams? And we met and it all began to unravel and we learned so many things. This is similar to that.
It's feeling the same, yeah.
It's feeling the same and we're really needing to be responsible and do it right the first time, because if we just throw an amount of money at it, it'll come back and bite us. And yeah, the biting will hurt far worse than if we just take some time to look at it.
We just want to be thoughtful.
Yeah, gotta do it right.
Do you think it will be considered before our next budget? Are you hoping
That's
to
the goal.
meet and
Yes, that we
convene?
would be able to meet and have a recommendation prior to the conclusion of the budget process, because if there is an increase that we need, I want it built into the budget.
Which means those things might work simultaneously next to each other.
Yeah.
But we all have time for that, so it'll work.
The budget season is just around the corner.
I know, just as soon as you put it to bed, it's like,
Here it is again.
Here it is again.
It's really feeling it.
like a bad dream.
I start working on budget next month.
Yeah, November, yeah. Crazy.
In some school districts, like in AOS, the school board has to vote on the AOS budget in December. Crazy.
And then there's a number of, within the AOS, there's a number of school boards. So that superintendent has to go to all the board meetings.
Sorry, what is AOS?
Alternative operating
System
system.
Alternative,
operating
maybe.
system.
It used to be called a union, a school union. And how they operate is that every single town within the union has their own school board. And then they share in the cost for a superintendent's office. So the AOS that I'm talking about, that would be the superintendent's office. So the superintendent's office has to do everything, the number of towns that they have in their union or in their AOS. So if it's a 6-town union, they have 6 budgets, they have 6 payrolls, they have 6 policy books, 6 everything. That's how I started my career.
6 meetings.
I started my career in Union 51, which was, at the time, it was Chelsea, Whitefield, Windsor, Jefferson, Palermo, and Windsor. And if I had one night off like every 6 weeks, yeah, it was brutal.
When first they were in discussion about school consolidation, they weren't going to allow unions to remain because it's not a,
Very inefficient.
I was trying not to say that, but thank you.
It
But
is
it's a local
inefficient.
control
It's-
issue.
It's, yep.
Then they relented and there's a few AOSs. There aren't very many, but there are a few.
But there are some, yeah.
And it's hard to hold
Organizational
superintendents.
structure, alternative organizational structure, that's
There
what
you
it
go.
is, that's what it is.
All right, so any questions for Nate? Anyone?
No, thank you for putting that together, whoever did, because I know at the last meeting, we had no idea what number of games we were looking at or
Sure.
who was paid what, so whoever put that together, thank you.
Thank everyone. And thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
Hope it
Maybe
was
a
a good use
thank
of
you
your
and an
time.
apology to all the people who actually do the work, because we'll get there, it just needs a little bit more thought.
I agree.
And they're very much appreciated.
Yes, we really do
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
I really appreciate them because we wouldn't be able to have, you
Right.
know, it makes my life a lot easier. It's a struggle sometimes to find game workers, but I'm very appreciative of what they do.
Absolutely.
You know, they certainly do a lot for our athletes and our schools.
Couldn't run the games without them.
That's it.
No,
Absolutely.
and had we not had that initial question, we would not even know,
Yeah.
so. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, back to soccer.
Back to soccer. Hope we win.
That's right.
Thank you.
How many seniors are there?
We had 8 seniors tonight.
I do too. Can you place an order for those jackets?
I'm gonna be planning a meeting with White's pretty soon to get some gear.
I have no Gardner gear, so
Put in an order for a
We
hoodie.
have limited.
I have all this St. Joe's gear, but it doesn't,
Gear at all?
I don't.
Wow.
I need Gardner
We
gear.
need to change that.
I need to change that because I can't come here and with monks on my jacket. That's crazy.
All right,
School
we'll
board
change that.
hoodies,
Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you.
I'm a fan of the hoodie.
We are adjourned.
your last name on the back.
Thank you.
You have Gardner gear?
I have very little.